Welcome. So, today I saw a video that I wanted to watch. It's called Riot Must Be Terrified. Another game gutted. And I'm assuming they're talking about 2XKO, which is a fighting game made by Riot, which, I mean, like, bro, I don't think anyone's been playing fighting games for ages. I mean, I don't know, it feels like a kind of a dead, outdated genre a little bit. I know some people might get upset at that, but when is the last time you heard of like a huge, just like fighting game? And I don't mean like, you know, fucking like For Honor or some weird version of a fighting game like that. I'm talking about like classical style fighting game, 2D. You know, you're standing here, I'm standing here, and we're, you know, whatever that was. Yeah. But anyways, let's get to the video. And let's see what this guy has to say. His name is Bellular News.
Company that doesn't have all the money in the universe. But this one's about Riot. You know, with the High Guard situation, it kind of made sense. It's a new company that doesn't have all the money in the universe. But this one's about Riot. And they do have a lot of money, though they're struggling to put the S in Riot Games, because their most recent game...
They're ran by Tencent, or they're owned by Tencent, so they have some pretty big backers.
Launched a month ago. Yes, a new game from Riot. Loads of people have no idea, though. I kinda had no idea. Now, the development team has just been cut in half, and it's just the latest in a string of money-driven decisions, because...
Yeah, they didn't do any promoting on it. It's like a fan game almost. You know, they figured that the fans would latch onto it, and then because of that, you know, everyone with a Riot launcher sees it. If you play League of Legends or Valorant or TFT frequently on your computer, then you saw 2XKO at one point and were like, oh, what's this? You know, it's a tab on your screen, I'm pretty sure. If I'm wrong about that, let me know.
Riot's infinite money tap is running dry. You see, a decade ago, League of Legends was unstoppable, so Riot expanded. New genres, new games. They bought...
Yeah, and all of those were really successful, except I don't know how successful the card game was, or currently is. It's more of a new thing. But League of Legends and Valorant are extremely popular.
Teams outright and spent millions trying to build a grand empire. And then, post-pandemic, something seems to have changed. We've seen them circle the wagons around League's monetization. You know, $300, $400 skins out.
Yeah, and you know what? They made a ton of money off of it. It was a successful skin release.
There's experiments like Riot Forge, which seemed promising, but
that's something that people don't understand. Like, just because you don't like something doesn't mean that it's not necessarily good as a business choice. There were enough people. Yeah, it was a way to generate money for the game. They released it, you know, like, hey, I don't like it. I would like the cool skins to be priced reasonably so that I can afford them and look cool too. But the reality is, it was to make money. They were very upfront with that. They were saying, like, this is for the whales who spend thousands of dollars on a game, because there's tons of people like that who play League of Legends. And it worked. I mean, it made money. It did what they were trying to do. So, like, at least they're being honest and upfront about, you know, oh, we just needed to make some money for whatever reason.
There's Hytale being cut loose, and now Riot are so afraid of losing out.
Yeah, I mean, Hytale's very cool, but Hytale is so underdeveloped at this point. I still am confused as why they dropped it. But maybe they just wanted to like focus their teams and their efforts on one thing at a time, or like, you know, focus more closely on fewer things. I think that's what they've been trying to do. Like, they sort of expanded out with all those indie games. It wasn't the most successful thing in the world, and now they kind of like went back on it, and they are not huge on working with other studios and creating these like small little indie games in the League of Legends universe. So we'll see what comes of Hytale. I personally don't think it's gonna stick around forever. Um, I mean, it might be popular like 10 years from now, but will it sustain like Minecraft will? Probably not.
That they won't even try to give a game a chance if it doesn't succeed off the bat. And to me, it's an insane story, because maybe this game...
Yeah, because when a game doesn't succeed off the bat, it usually just doesn't succeed.
Could have got word of mouth over time, or any of those things that could have got people into it.
They've been talking about 2XKO forever.
People I know, even ones who do care about fighting games, had kind of no idea, didn't really notice that it launched. This is weird, so let's get into it.
I noticed.
The game is called 2XKO. Not exactly the most SEO friendly.
All my friends
title,
noticed.
Not exactly the most memorable one. Maybe that didn't help them. But
yeah,
their
2XKO
staff
is
had
a weird
worked
name.
on this game for nearly a decade, and some were laid off with about 30 minutes notice. On February 9th, 20 days after launch...
Yeah, 30 days notice is crazy, but if they did give them a good, like, last paycheck, more understandable, which...
Riot announced
I
that
don't know if it did
50%
or not,
of the dev
but...
team, around 80 people, would be laid off. Something went deeply wrong with the launch of Riot's very own fighting game. And the thing is, we know this is because of the weak console release. And that has happened just 3 months after PC Early Access.
I feel like the League of Legends community does not want to play another fighting game version of their fighting game. Like, I know that League is different than, like, you know, Tekken or Mortal Kombat or whatever. But it has that same, attack, I don't know, like, fucking ability appeal. Combinations, you know? Except it's just, you got 5 of them instead of just one guy. But, I don't know. It just doesn't, it doesn't itch anything for me, you know? Like, and I feel like with the consensus amongst most of my friend group that plays League of Legends was the same. We just didn't want it, you know?
And we know, because Riot said
it's
it
cool.
themselves. Here's the quote. As we expanded from PC to console, we saw consistent trends in how players were engaging with 2XKO. The game has resonated with a passionate core audience, but overall momentum hasn't reached the level needed to support a team of this size long term. You know, it's funny, for a company who really does seem to be okay with investing lots of money into big projects that will take a long time, say the MMO, seems they weren't willing to invest the time needed for this game to be live and perhaps grow and improve based on player feedback. Because I'm going to be real with you,
because the game didn't do well, and it was a very good game. Like, 2XKO is a great game. I think it's very cool. The devs, it's obviously like a pretty big passion project for the people who worked on it. You can just tell by playing it. Or, you know, looking at the little details and whatever quality of life stuff, you know. But I just don't think that there's a player base for it. You know, like, the guys that play Tekken and Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat or whatever, they're just gonna keep playing those games. They don't want to get they don't want to get a PC to download Riot Games and play this game. It's just, I don't think there's the crossover between League of Legends players. Like, it exists, but it's such a small community. And if they don't want to put a bunch of money towards marketing and getting it out on consoles and trying to steal the player base, because there's only so many players who like these types of games, you know? Like, it's like that with everything. There's, like, a market. Would be the play of, like, let's start with just trying to take over the whole scene, because they already put so many years and so much money into this game in the first place. Like, why didn't they just, you know, go the extra mile there? I don't know.
something like this happening,
But they
is
didn't.
counter to the goal of this
And
game
it's
eventually
not
turning
sustainable.
right. So what's happened is the team is being
So they're cutting
downsized.
it.
Laid off staff will get a chance to apply for jobs elsewhere within Riot, and anyone who can't will get 6 months of severance. But judging
6 months of severance. I mean, like, I get it. It sucks that you're losing the job that you worked hard to get and the job that you want and you thought that you'd be doing for like the rest of your life, because I feel like that's the type of company that Riot is. You know, you'd want to work there forever, like kind of like Blizzard. Even though it went through a bunch of stuff, everyone hopes that they like get that's like the dream, is for you to get a job and just work at it, that one place, and make a ton of money and it be easy, you know. But like 6 months severance, that's pretty good. I mean, I wouldn't be complaining about
those
that.
who have already announced they were laid off, there are fighting game specific staff who simply won't be able to jump ship to somewhere else within Riot. They're just not making other games like it. And as for the game itself, it ain't dead. Riot still have plans to support development and have community-led competitive play, you know, just in a way that reflects how much money they think they can make from it. I mean, they're still teasing and showing off new characters, so the game isn't dead. But here's the thing with this game. 2KXO was always going to struggle. It's a free-to-play niche subgenre of fighting game that I think would always be tough to make money from, especially when the competitors are paid products. You see, even with heavily monetized cosmetics and battle passes, 2XKO never really had the roster to support massive spending. Now, their new smaller dev team does mean lower costs, sure, but this pragmatism feels absurd the second you zoom out and look at the overall picture. Because this game was in development for 10 years, and Riot somehow didn't have a problem with it until now. So what's happened? What's changed? There's one thing you need to know, and it kind of kicks off the whole trajectory of this.
They saw the amount of players that are interested in playing the game, and they realized it wasn't big enough for what they were hoping. Like, it wasn't as big as they were hoping.
Surge of acquisitions and investment that led them towards Hytale, Riot Forge, and even to Valorant. You know, obviously that one worked out. And it wasn't some random indie pickup either. No, Tom and Tony Cannon are the people who launched EVO, and they worked in the creation of the rollback netcode. The big thing that everyone talks about in the FGC. The thing that, you know, devs would be hounded to add because without it, it just feels completely antiquated. So these aren't guys who just participated in the fighting game community. They quite literally built the infrastructure that a lot of the FGC runs on. Now, their studio had been building Rising Thunder. It was a free-to-play fighter that they were making with Seth Killian, another FGC legend, also being on board.
That looks terrible.
Real pedigree and talent.
Obviously, it's early stages, but that looks like shit.
Though it was released to the community with open source servers. Pretty sweet, but obviously, it's not that game that Riot acquired them for. They acquired them basically because of their experience. So instead, the Cannons and their team shifted to Project L. Project L is the game that would become 2XKO. And if anyone could make a fighting game work at Riot, it was surely this team and these people. Now in 2019, they confirmed a new fighting game was in the works, with some early hints that it would feature League of Legends characters. Tests in 2023 and 24 revealed the name of the game, 2XKO. Of course, named because you would need 2 knockouts to win. That's kinda cute. But, well, if you're a League of Legends player, you maybe won't know what that is, naturally. If you're any other human, you may recognize KO and think knockout, so sure, a fighting game, but it doesn't feel like a brand. It feels like a cute descriptor, and honestly, it's my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't understand the name. The name didn't make any sense to me, and I don't think it made sense to anyone that I know.
That name and such a misfire with branding just completely killed the chances that this would have. I think this was a negative multiplier on everything.
No, I don't think that the branding killed the whole game. Like, branding's really important, but if your product is actually that good and the audience is there, it'll be successful.
That they did. Look at other games.
It'll be more successful with good marketing.
Street Fighter. They just make more emotional sense than the silly name that this game has. Especially because, while they had lead characters, there was a massive lack of branding, and the cross-promotion stuff wasn't really that successful. And unlike Hytale, which launched a week earlier, 2XKO just couldn't break through the January doldrums to reach big new audiences. But it might actually be Hytale that exposes 2XKO's biggest problem. Because just like that game, Riot clearly decided that they needed to make money, and the 10 years of development suddenly needed to deliver. Emphasis on the suddenly. And now for the context that makes this all click. So whenever Hytale was cancelled, it was because Riot could no longer invest the funds necessary to ship the game as intended being the big operative there. Because even though Hytale has launched and has been a big success, it's not the type of success that Riot would have wanted. To Riot, Hytale had to be a Riot-quality triple.
I think it is the type of success that Riot wanted. I'm pretty sure Hytale made a ton of money and has a huge player base already. It's like extremely successful, but it's not. They like had an idea of what it was gonna be, and then when it took way too long to get there, and what they had after like years and years of working on it was just not really anything yet. And they just
game across all of the different platforms. That's why, as an example, they did the big engine rewrite, which humongously damaged the development process of that game. And of course, that's all work that has been scrapped for the Hytale that we now have. And what that insane scope meant is that Hytale was just a game that would happily be taking Riot money to build this big Riot quality AAA thing forever until something changed at Riot. And they suddenly needed something that needed to be shipped or sold, and relatively quickly. With Hytale, that was simply not possible because of where it was.
Yeah.
2XKO was almost certainly in a similar place, just that it was eminently more shippable as compared to Hytale. And what's rough is that that development team, along with others, like some of the Hytale people, they were victims of Riot's hubristic belief that things would never change. Because for nearly 10 years, Riot was comfortable just letting developers simply build, simply develop. Now, they'd been fully acquired by Tencent in 2015. They had League of Legends money. Over the next 5 years, they would have Runeterra money, Valorant money, lots of money. And this meant not a lot of near-term financial pressure. They had more cash than they needed. So what they needed to do with that cash...
I mean, they're still going strong with all of those games.
That's a noble goal. But when you get blasé about money, well, reality can hit you damn fast. Let's take a look at the projects. Riot Forge was never going to make games as successful as League, but to Riot at the time, it was about expanding their world, empire building. Arcane was costly, but
yeah, they did all of this. They saw what they spent and what they got, and how much it expanded their brand. It was a nice little experiment, working with all these indie studios to make these, Riot IP games. And then they were like, that was cool. We're not going to do it again. And
people,
that's fine. I mean,
ever been involved with quality
like they're probably going to focus on the TV show, over anything. The TV show is massively successful in comparison to these indie games that just were not, because indie games have small player bases and are usually only successful on an individual basis.
Pixel and Radiant to make sure those studios could deliver on the promise of
usually
their games.
There's outliers, of course, like Terraria and Stardew.
Sort of early access, not really finished, maybe a bit of a high guard situation. No, that they would benefit from the Riot money to fully deliver the promise of their games. Riot could give time, funding, and resources, things that are not abundant in the games industry. And they're things that are important, that do work. Do you know what game we praised last year for that exact process? It was this tiny little game, I think about bugs, called Silksong. There's a future then where maybe Riot didn't shit out 2XKO, where it actually got time, and its release would have been good enough to capture people's attention. But rather obviously, something inside Riot changed.
I don't think that they shit it out. I'm pretty sure it's still in beta. They released it in beta to see what kind of player base it could garner with like no advertising and no console release. They're getting their feels out for it, and they didn't like what they felt. They didn't like it.
Let's look at what happened.
So they're pulling it back a little bit, but they're still keeping it alive. Like, I don't think that it's not going to make any money. I think it's just going to make them a small amount of money, which, like, I get that that's not the most important thing when you're making a video game. There has to be passion behind it, which I think 2XK has a lot of passion behind it, but it does need to make money, unfortunately. That is like the second priority over being a good game, it needs to make
It
money.
saw layoffs of approximately 11% of Riot. That's 530 people. Riot Forge was ended. Legends of Runeterra lost staff and shifted to PvE as interest in PvP waned. October brought another round. It was smaller, but it was telling. It was 32 people from the League of Legends team itself. Then came the doubling down on expensive monetization-heavy trends for League of Legends. We've talked about those a fair bit in the last few years. It's often been the likes of gacha systems with, yes,
Riot Games has officially embraced gambling, 10.7 billion USD. And that's how much money is generated by esports gambling associated with Riot Games, Valorant, and League of Legends. As such, morals be damned. I mean, that... Riot... Wait, morals be damned, Riot wants a cut? I'm curious what Riot wants a cut means. Gambling is like normal for adults in, you know, in American culture. It's, I mean, I'm pretty sure worldwide it's just like ingrained in every culture. It's a huge vice. You know, it's as popular as alcohol, right? So like, yeah, people are gonna gamble on Valorant and League of Legends esports. There's like, duh, you know? And if Riot wants to find a way to slip their fingers there and make money off of the gambling, I mean, I don't really know what to think about that. I don't really have an opinion on it, but it is what it is, I guess.
a built-in pity, but a built-in pity that pretty
I don't
much
know.
means
What do you guys think? Let me know. What do you guys think about
you're going to be
Riot
spending
wants
an
a cut,
absurd
and
amount
what
of
does that
money to
actually
get some of
mean?
the hyper-expensive
Like,
skins that they've put into that game. Of course, hyper-expensive skins that are fueled by FOMO. Then there's the monetization and loot box changes that...
yeah. Yeah. FOMO, I mean, yes, FOMO works.
had to be walked back so that players like still felt that they had
I mean, I don't even think it's FOMO necessarily. It was a $500 skin. If you were going to pay the $500 then, you were going to pay the $500 in a couple weeks, okay?
reason to engage with the game. It was crazy. And then by 2025, Hytale was cancelled and sold. Clearly then, the boom years were over, and the projects that remained had to pay the price. And normally when I'd say that, it would be, you know, like a metaphor or something, but it's actually literal here. They needed to make money. They needed to pay for themselves, and fast. Hytale could not do that. At least not the version of Hytale that Riot would be, you know, comfortable releasing. So that.
I don't know about fast. Like, why would they need to do it fast? Are you saying that they're running out of money?
Was killed. Then there's Riftbound, the card game, which by all accounts has actually worked out well. It seems highly in demand, stock is hard to come by, so that did succeed immediately. But then there's 2XKO.
Because people like card games, and
meant
people like card games, and the Pokemon market is just bad. Like, it's terrible. Magic seems fine. Pokemon, it seems like hell to be a Pokemon fan. I played Pokemon the second that started happening, when like Pokemon cards were out everywhere. I quit. I just gave my collection to someone and I just stopped.
that it had to come
It's
out,
not fun
and
anymore.
luckily, or unluckily for them, they were close enough to having a releasable product that they had to release it. Of course, it did
There's
not.
probably what I'm saying is there's probably a huge market that's just sitting there wanting to be able to buy cards like a normal human being at their local card store, but they can't because scalpers keep scalping, you know?
work.
So they
And
see
clearly
the
Riot
new
is
card
not
game
interested in slow growth.
and they want to
The
play it.
line needs to go up. It needs to go up fast. And for game development teams, that means that they cannot hone their product market fit while their game is live. I mean, they can try to do that. The 2XKO team probably will try, but they've just lost half of their number. And is any potential player of that game going to look at it and think, I know what I'll do. I'm going to spend money in this game that they just laid off half the team of? No. Be it for good or ill, people do actually see their spending in games as a bit of an investment. People don't want to invest in a loser. And that, I think, has killed them. Killed might be too harsh. The remaining team are there, but they do just face an uphill battle. Not only do they have to pick up the pieces of the development plans that their colleagues were building and somehow deliver on them, because, you know, they'll have made all of their plans with their team size into account. If you slash the team size, it's not like you can just...
You just release a new plan and be like, sorry, we can't do what we used to do, or what we used to want to do. It's definitely not a dead game.
Eat half the plans away and have something that works. No, you have to re-plan. That's going to hurt them. Delivering all that will be really hard, and as I said, they've now got to contend with the perception of the layoffs. This game was already a tough pitch. It was peeling players off current and legacy fighting games. Those players have to believe that there's something worth investing their time into learning.
I mean, not only that, but you have to actually pull them off of those legacy games. The people that I know that really like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat, they're still playing Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat to this day. Like, the people who are super into those games are super into those games. You know, they eat the same sandwich every day for lunch. You know what I mean? Like that type shit.
Money into skins. That
They're
takes
not
time.
excited to try new
That's the real
things.
problem. Because whenever layoffs happen just 1 month into the full release life of a game, it sends a powerful signal that says, if you haven't started...
Either that or they have 8 kids, you know, and they're fucking...
playing this, you actually made the right call. And you shouldn't bother. Now, I'm not dumb. I know there's a balance sheet. I know the balance sheet should probably look reasonable. But the thing here is, I think that this was just a little bit self-defeating. Because in managing their balance sheet, I think they have killed any near to medium-term chance of this game experiencing meaningful growth. 2XKO is not dead, but from the outside, sure doesn't look like it's going anywhere. What frustrates me is this didn't have to happen. Riot is not an indie developer who can't afford a few months of running at a loss. Now, they are entitled to cut...
Yeah, I mean, they're not an indie developer. I mean, I guess that's true, but at what point, like, if you have a studio, you know, because they're all like different teams. So yeah, if you have a team that's not making any money and it's eating up a bunch of money and it's not providing you anything for your company, you're going to cut it off. Like, that's reasonable business. Are they jumping the gun on it a little bit? I mean, probably. It's a little soon.
Their losses, sure, especially after 10 years of development and a studio acquisition.
Which I guess is what this guy is saying, you know?
That's weird. And here's what makes it sting.
But
the game is
yeah,
actually
I don't know.
really good. The FGC loves it mechanically. Not all of them. I know it's not one monoblock of people called the fighting game community who all have the same opinions, but it seems genuinely praised in its mechanics. It hit third most downloaded free-to-play title on PlayStation at console launch. So this is not a bad game that failed. It's a good game that got abandoned because the growth curve was not steep enough. Here's the thing. You may remember a long time ago on this channel, we talked about a presentation done by Torolf Jernström.
I didn't even realize that it was released on console. I mean, if they've released it on console and it topped the charts and they're cutting the team down, I think that says a lot about the retention. Because, like, I mean, I know for me personally, I enjoy fighting games like Injustice or Super Smash Bros. Or whatever. You know, I play Super Smash Bros. All the time. I always come back to it. It's a classic, right? But I loaded up this game. I played, you know, like, played it for 4 or 5 hours, and then I was like, yeah, it's not my game. And I closed it, and I'm probably never even going to open it again. It's just not my type. It's not my cup of tea. I'd rather play League of Legends, you know? I'd rather play Valorant. I'm a huge Riot fan, but you know, I don't know. I really, really want to like the game and want to play it, but I just don't have fun, you know?
And this was years ago, but one of the core things was talking about the amount of time it takes from a player to become a payer. And in the games industry, that has only increased and increased over time. But the point basically is,
I'm
if you
assuming
launch
that
a
people picked up the game and then
then
dropped it.
kill
Like,
your game a month later,
fast.
even per the mobile game stats from that talk, most of your players were nowhere close to becoming a payer. You actually need to let things run. People will buy skins once they get attached to those characters, once they get attached to the game, once they have memorable wins that have came after months and months of getting better. That's when someone buys a skin. So to see a month of weak skin sales on PlayStation and pull the plug? Not even a month. I believe it was 3 weeks. That's stupid. That actually looks self-defeating. I'm kind of shocked. And the sad thing is, this is a really good game. And maybe
it is
just that Riot didn't have the patience to let that game get into its groove. And in doing this the way that they've done it, they may have just shot it in both of its kneecaps. So yes, it's not dead, but when I say it isn't going anywhere, or it doesn't look like it's going anywhere, yeah, because it can't move anymore. Because Riot have hamstrung it. Because they've done the equivalent of seeing their struggling game lying on the floor and just put up a sign that says, "Plague, stay away." Bit of a weird metaphor, whatever, but I think it gets the point across. What the hell, man?
Are there more? Is there a bigger player base than I thought for this genre? Like, am I crazy in thinking that like no one plays fighting games anymore? Innovate on it, you know, like Super Smash Bros. Super popular game. It's not really the same as like Tekken or anything like that, you know, or Mortal Kombat. I mean, those games are still plenty big, don't get me wrong, but are they as big as they used to be? Will they ever be that big again? Probably not, because I feel like the platform is kind of outdated and you need to innovate a little bit more than what 2XKO did innovate. So,
okay, that's it for this video. Killed in the Cradle. And speaking of Killed in the Cradle, there's something that I think a lot of people do want Killed in the Cradle. The shenanigans going on with Discord.
that was a good video. I really like the game, and I hope that it continues to grow, and the player base continues to grow, and I hope that they make money off of it. But I don't see it happening like long term, you know. But I don't think it's necessarily dead either. So we'll just have to wait and see. We'll just have to wait and see. It's kind of hard because it doesn't really have any comparisons, you know. There's no like free to play fighting games out there at the moment. It's kind of an outlier, you know. So we'll see. Anyways, yeah. Thank you guys for watching.